Welcome to the Connect or Die podcast.
What's up, everybody?
Dude, what episode is this even? I don't even know what episode we're on.
Seven or eight? I don't know.
7 or 8.
I think it's
Holy
7.
Crap. That's a lot.
We're doing good.
Yeah, we are doing good. I'm proud of us.
Yeah.
Doing well.
Consistency,
Showing up.
Right?
Yeah. And I'm excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, man. I'm going to let you introduce it since you have way more experience with this book than I do.
Yeah. Well, I just... so it's one of my favorite books of all time. I've read this book, I don't even know how many times. So it's called The Old Man and the Sea.
If you were to guess how many times you've read it, what would you...
It's probably 25 plus times,
Dang.
something like that.
Well, it's a quick read.
Yeah, it's only, if you put it on 1.25 setting on Audible, it's 2.5 hours, right?
It's nothing.
Really short read, but it is so profoundly deep and powerful. I feel like every time I read it, I feel like I'm just starting to understand it. So it was by Emerson, and it's absolutely amazing. So,
is it
no, sorry,
Hemingway,
not Emerson.
right?
Hemingway. No, it's not Hemingway.
I thought it was.
No, it is Hemingway. You're right, Ernest.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ernest Hemingway.
And so it's one of my favorite books. It's absolutely powerful. So I'm excited to get into the conversation today. So for those of you who haven't read it, just go read it.
Yeah, seriously, 2.5 hours. That's nothing.
2.5 hours. That's your commute.
I did it this morning.
Yeah.
I actually cranked it up to 1.75. Yeah. So Donald Sutherland's voice is very, very quick. And you don't quite get the same vibrato and deep voice drama, but
that's why I like 1.7 or 1.25
because you kind of still get
picks
that
it up and you still get everything.
Yeah.
But absolutely powerful book. So it's really the heroic story of a man that faces chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's so many good lines from it. I think that's one thing that I thought would be kind of fun for us is we'll go through some of these quotes and talk about really what they mean to us.
Man.
So this book for me, I feel like I read it and I still don't understand it. Maybe that's why I keep going back. I'm like, I read lines in it and I'm like, I feel like I understand it. There's obvious surface level. Obviously, I understand the entire book. But there are things that are deeper within it that are so powerful. I literally get chills as I'm reading it. So there's this first quote that I sent to you. Let me see here. So here's one quote. Talking about Santiago. He's the main person in the book.
The old man.
He was too simple to wonder when he had attained humility. But he knew that he had attained it, and he knew that it was not disgraceful, and it carried no loss of true pride. And what that makes, I guess I'll hand it over to you, and then I'll say what I think.
The thing that pops out to me is obviously the end.
Yeah.
No loss of true pride. I think that there's so many people who misunderstand humility. A lot of people who think that humility is to tear themselves down.
Yeah.
And pride would be to build yourself up. But in my opinion, if humility is tearing yourself down, it's based in a lie.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's not true. And if pride is to build yourself up when it's in reality you're not that, it's based in a lie. So true pride would be, I don't know, I think that's something interesting to discuss. What would you consider true pride?
I would consider true pride is, first of all, knowing essentially who you are. I think that, and then having built something, having done something, having acted in a specific way for a fairly long period of time.
Yeah.
I feel like I have pride when it comes to if I promise someone I'm going to be there, I show up.
Yeah.
And I think that those who are close to me know I will. Know that if they call me and I can be there, I will be.
Mm-hmm.
That is a measure of true pride.
Yeah. I think to me it's confidence.
Yeah.
And confidence is always based in reality.
Yeah.
It's difficult to be, for instance, if you've never played guitar, it's difficult to pick up the guitar and be confident playing the guitar because you haven't put forth the time. And there are people that have, natural inclinations towards things, and maybe someone could pick up. And that would be incredible. But I think you're absolutely right. Confidence comes from choice.
Right.
That you make a choice consistently over time and you get a certain result. And no one can take that from you.
Yeah.
Like, no one can take the hours and hours that I have spent playing the guitar. And because of the hours and hours I've spent playing the guitar, I have a certain confidence level when it comes to playing that.
Right.
And it's based in truth and reality. If I were to, and I've been guilty of this in my life, someone's like, oh man, you play guitar so well. And I say, no, I really don't.
Yeah.
That's fake humility.
Right.
Because part of me feels like it's true, but I'm like, oh no, like I'm going to reject that. That's fake humility.
There's other people who are better than me, so...
Honestly, if I'm going to be honest, it was pride. Because what I was doing is I was downplaying what they would say, so they would say more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'd downplay it more, so they'd say more. And then I'd be like, oh, my ego, right? So I think... And then it's cool, he was so simple. He was such a simple-minded individual that he never really thought about. Yeah. Have I attained humility?
Yeah.
But once he attained it, and he knew that he had, because it's this feeling of just... And I mean, maybe that's a good thing, too. It's like, what is humility?
Yeah.
How would you define humility?
That's a good question. I think humility... How would you define that? That's somebody who... Like, I guess this is the only way I can describe it. It's when somebody writes something beautiful, creates something amazing, and then they say, I felt like I was just the instrument.
Yeah.
Like, did it take the skill for them to be able to do it? Did it take the time and the effort and the challenge? Everything. But then they say, like, I feel like God was just using me as a tool to create this. And I don't know why, I just had to create it.
Yeah.
You know? And I feel like that's when you start stepping in to something like humility, where you are so grateful for that it was created and that you got to be a part of it, that you can almost step outside of the work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No,
I don't know if
absolutely.
I mean, I literally haven't ever thought
it
that.
Absolutely makes sense. And I'm having this weird thought where it's like true humility and true pride are the same thing.
Yeah.
It's based in truth and it's based in honesty. Whereas I think a lot of times people equate humility with weakness.
Yeah.
You know, you have a true perception of your weaknesses, and people would they would say pride is a true understanding of your strengths.
Right.
In my opinion, true pride is it's an understanding of both your strengths and your weaknesses. And true humility is an understanding of both your strengths and your weaknesses. Yeah. And true pride and true humility, it's understanding the source of them. Yeah. Whether it be, you were just born with this, and so you have to say, well, I have to give this to some sort of higher power or to the universe or whatever, because I was just born with this capability. I think true humility and true pride, they really get to the point where they're the same thing. They show up the same way. Yeah. Whereas so often we put them on opposite sides. It's like an individual who's proud can't be humble. Yeah. That's not true. Yeah. It's not true. And an individual who's humble can't be proud. Right. No, it's not true. Both things can exist in the same individual. Right. And I think that's what that
yeah, and I think Santiago proves that throughout the book.
He does.
Like, his conversations with himself and the fish prove that. Yeah. Like, there's this one part where he's like, oh, I wish I could see the fish. And he's like, oh, but then if he came up, he would see that my hand is cramped.
And he would know my weakness.
Yeah, he would know my weakness. So let him think that I'm stronger than I am, and I will be. Like, it's like that conversation that he has with himself, or when he says again, there's another part of the book where he says, he's like, if others heard me talking to myself aloud, they would think I'm crazy. But since I am not, I do not care.
I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that quote you say, it's like he didn't want the fish to know that he was weak. That's a reflection of true humility, but it's also a reflection of true pride. Right. Because he recognized and understood that while the fish had strength, and strength that he respected and saw, and even to some degree recognized that the fish's strength was greater than his own, right. He also recognized that as a man, he had the tactics and the skill and the knowledge and the cunning. Right. And he could use that with his strength. whatever it was, and there was a time right when his hand was cramping, and he's
Right.
like, I don't know if I can keep doing this.
Yeah.
But to recognize the truth of the situation, I think represents that true humility, true pride.
Right. Well, and this kind of comes down to, if nothing can stop a will that will forsake even existence for its fulfillment, nothing can stop it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of will that he has. So that kind of brings up one of my other favorite quotes here.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like we're getting into other areas that are great quotes.
So we'll read this one, and then we'll kind of start from the top maybe after that. But most people were heartless about turtles, because a turtle's heart will beat for hours after it's been cut up and butchered. But the old man thought, I have such a heart too. It's like he recognized that, and there's one more quote, I guess, that can go right along with it. He says, let me see here. I may not be as strong as I think, but I have many tricks and I have resolution. So it's this idea that he understands what his limits are, but he also trusts himself enough. For example, his hand cramps, right? And then he forgives his hand.
Yeah.
Later, he's like, maybe I didn't train it enough. He's like, well, God knows he has had enough time to learn, because he's 60 or 70 years old by this time. But he's like, well, hand, he's like, you did okay. You did okay. You haven't cramped again. It's been okay. He forgives himself throughout this entire process.
Yeah.
And it's him battling against this fish that he loves. And I guess we can get into that in a minute, but I kind of want to go back to the turtle quote. He says, the turtle's heart will continue to beat after it's been cut up and butchered.
And because of that, some hate it.
Yeah. Some people hate them because they, I know we've seen this many times, in movies where they're like, don't get up. When they're yelling at this guy, they're like, just stay down. And he just continues to get up. When the Padawan is beating the master, right? But the master won't stop.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've already beat you. Stop. Because the Padawan, in some ways, loves the master.
Yeah.
But the master won't stop. That's what makes him the master. And the Padawan. It's not the skills. It's not the ability. It's the dogged, I will never stop until I get there.
Yeah.
Type personality. And the old man, that's what, he has a part of the book where he arm wrestles a guy. For 4 days, they arm wrestle. Or I can't remember. I think they started on a Friday night and they end Monday morning. Arm wrestling, nonstop the whole time, And he talks about that experience, but he's like, I have that kind of heart that won't stop.
Yeah, and I think that was the thing about the old man that I really truly admired, is that he had a very whether it was he was conscious of it or not, he understood a truth that I've seen in my life, that everything is a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. Everything is a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. If there's some part of nature or there's some part of another person that we hate, it's usually because it speaks to something about us that we hate. And I think, with this turtle example, he's talking about people who are fishing turtles.
Right.
Well, yeah, of course, if an individual wants the easy kill, a turtle is not one of them, right? It's going to take more effort, it's going to take more time, and that's what they hate about it. Whereas the old man, he looks at the turtle and he's like, yeah, but the turtle has a heart that keeps beating no matter what happened. And I have that heart, and I love that about the turtle, and I love that about myself.
Yeah.
And he would say these things all the time, where it's like, I see this strength in the fish, and I know I don't have that strength, but I see it there.
Yeah.
And I think so often people in their interactions with others, they don't understand or they don't recognize that the way that they treat people is really an indication of how they feel about themselves.
Right. Well, in creating enemies, you think about the way that people are treating each other now in our country, right? It's like someone has a different viewpoint, therefore they're evil. It's like, what is that born out of?
Yeah.
Is that born out? They're starting to censor, they're burning books, at some colleges. They're
Right.
making certain things illegal. Like you can't watch certain things on YouTube in the UK now. Like certain channels are completely blocked. You can't even access them. Like they're trying to limit other ideas
Yeah.
than the ones that they're putting forth. What is that born out of? And what is that hatred and an attempt to create enemies? You know, and whether good intentioned or not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, and what I love about the old man is his conversation with the fish. Like, there's this one part where he says, you know, I love you and respect you very much, but I will kill you dead before this day ends. And it's this idea that, like, he doesn't have to hate the fish in order for him to take his order and, like, and persuade the chaos of the fish.
Yeah.
So that he can bring the fish in and feed others. Like there are other things, but then also so that he can find the strength within himself.
Yeah.
To overcome.
Well, and there's a part of him that respects the fish and what the fish can teach him. Even as he's, you know, got his hook in it, and the fish is literally carrying his boat for 2.5 days.
Yeah.
What he just keeps saying, you know, these people are going to eat you, and do they deserve to eat you? No, no one deserves to eat you because you're great, but I'm still going to kill you.
Yeah. Well, and he's like, and I know that you're more noble than I. You know, I know your nobility is undeniable.
Yeah, and I think that there's something powerful about that, because the moment that you create something and you make it an enemy, the natural tendency is to tear it down, you know. And if we're going to have an enemy, most of us would choose an enemy that we can slay easily.
Yeah.
And that's what we create a lot of times. You know, that's why I just remember in school when I was doing argumentative papers, it was the straw man, right? You don't want, if you're going to go and represent the other side, you don't want to do it in a way where it's a straw man that you can easily slay. Like, you want to build it up. You want to show that you understand the other side, to almost to the point where you're convincing people reading your paper that the other side is the better way.
Right.
And then from there, if you can deconstruct it, you will have made a more powerful point. And I think that's what the old man understood. He understood that if he recognized what the fish was, the truth of who the fish was and the strength of the fish, that he could summon an equal strength within himself.
Right.
Whether it was his strength or using tactics on top of that, his knowledge, but he knew that if he was honest about what he was facing,
right,
that he could be honest about how to face it.
Yeah.
And that was the best way of doing it. He described at one point how many fishermen refer to the ocean as feminine.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the exact, like,
Lamar.
Something
Lamar
like that.
and Elmar.
And the people who refer to it as feminine, they recognize the chaos of it, but they love it. There's this love relationship in the same way that they would love a woman.
Like, that she can be extremely fierce. He says that in the same line. He's like, the ocean can be extremely fierce, but I love her anyway.
Yeah. And he learns from her, and he has this relationship. And then he says there are those who would call it Elmar, which is more masculine, and then they view it as like it's a fight, it's a battle, it's a war, it's an enemy. And I think that is such a parallel to our lives. If you make something an enemy, you have now given it that power.
Yeah. And
with every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. If I make you my enemy, that's my action. The reaction is you're going to return as my enemy. Whether you are or not, in my mind, I will make you up to be an enemy.
Yeah.
And if it's not based in truth and it's not based in reality, then it's not going to empower you.
Right.
And
I wonder if that's so interesting. I love your point of view on this, because what if that's the actual main message of the entire book? Is like,
to be honest.
Yeah. Well, not just to be honest, but it's like, if you make the ocean your enemy, she will be.
If you make her your lover, she will be.
Yeah. If you actually are able to understand that you don't have to make others your enemy. You can, like, I feel like when you want to make someone else the enemy, then that's born out of an insecurity in yourself.
Yes. Always. Always.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like he's secure enough. He knows his own strength. He knows he has many tricks. He knows that he has resolution, which I love. Like he's like, I won't stop until I'm dead.
Yeah.
Like there's one part of the book, he's like 2 days in and the fish isn't coming up yet. Mm-hmm. And he's extremely tired. And he's like, fish, you're already dead. Do you have to kill me too?
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to stop until you come in with me.
Yeah. And even at one point he's like, well, you're so noble, fish. Maybe it's better that you win, or that maybe we'll both die, and then he changes and he's like, no, I don't like that.
Yeah. Well, there's even a part of because the fish is bigger than his boat. It's like twice the size of his boat, and he's strapped it onto the side and he's going in. And he's been awake now for 2.5 days. He hasn't eaten. He's like exhausted, and he's like, "Is the fish bringing me in, or am I bringing it in?"
Yeah. Well, and even to the point where the fish, like they get out further than he wanted to even go, which causes some issues. But yeah, I think I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
And the best example that I can think of this, and I don't want to talk about this too much because this is probably something I know we've shot an episode of this, but the audio was bad, so we have to do it again. But pornography. Within the community that I was born into and lived most of my life, the LDS community, porn is an enemy. Yeah. And
that's true.
And again, I think the mentality is, if I disagree with you, you are my enemy. That's what we're talking about. Because I don't agree with porn necessarily. Right. I don't agree with individuals engaging in a very intimate act in front of a camera. Like I don't agree with that personally, and having that be taken and shown to other people publicly. Right. But I also don't agree with the enmity situation where you think that porn is the thing that kills love. Right. Because it's a lie. Yeah. If you're not truthful about what's actually going on, about the monster that is actually in front of us, but you say, it's not this monster over here, it's actually this one over here, and this is what it looks like, you're fighting the wrong battle. Right. And you're fighting a battle with a thing that actually doesn't even have power. Yeah. Porn is just a thing. Right. People are like, no, the porn industry is the enemy. No, the porn industry is created because people have a desire for something and they're feeling that. Right. Like, that's the truth. Right. The question is, why do people have a desire for it? Yeah. Why are people using it? And that would lead you to the truth that is the monster. Right. And then you could slay the monster. Yeah. But if you're lying to yourself about what the monster is and creating this enemy that just, like, porn is images. Yeah. They're images. Yeah. And yeah, images do have power. I agree with that. But they only have the power that an individual gives them. Right. I can look at an image and have no reaction if I want to. Yeah. That's my choice. So that's kind of my thing, and so to take that and to be like, porn kills love. It's just to me, it's being like, it would be the same as if the old man were to be fighting this fish, and he were like blaming his boat for why he can't bring the fish in. Yeah. Or he's looking at the fish and he's like, fish, you are weak and you are evil, and I will like destroy you. Yeah. Like, I don't think he would have the same fight. Well, I don't think he'd have had the strength to be able to even beat it. Probably not. It's kind of comical, but have you ever seen that YouTube video? It's not about the nail. Mm-mm. If you're listening to this, you have to go watch this video. I'm gonna have to go watch it. So basically, in the video, there's a girl that has a nail in her head, right? And she's complaining to her husband, and she's like, "All my sweaters are just snagged, and like." I have this terrible pressure. There's just all this pressure in the front of my head. Uh-huh. And he keeps going, do you think it's the nail? She's like, it's not about the nail. Don't talk about the nail. And so it's something else. Yeah, it like makes me think of like disconnection's the nail. Pornography is the headache. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, like if you have a nail in your head, you could probably take the nail out. Or like focus on working on the nail rather than like trying to take Tylenol to get the headache to go away, and then finding that the headache continues to come back and won't stop. Rather than being like, maybe I should pull out the nail of disconnection versus trying to fix all the symptoms. Trying to like, it's like as if a doctor was just to
talk about your symptoms. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you break your arm and you come in, you're like, man, my arm really hurts. It's like, oh, let's give you some pain meds.
Yeah.
Don't you think we should put it back in place? Nah, you'll be fine. Let's just give you pain meds.
Seriously. But I just think, as I look back into my own life, I realize that I've given things more power than they actually have.
Yeah.
Even if it's other people's words. When people say things to me and I take them personally.
Yeah.
And almost their words become the enemy that I have to defend myself against. But if we were to just stop and be able to see things as they really are, we'd realize that, well, that person's probably saying this thing because there's something going wrong with them that they're insecure about, and they're trying to project that onto me.
Yeah.
And instead of taking it personally, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's like that's when you can start loving your enemy.
Yeah.
And like love those who despitefully use and abuse you, because you see why. You see the root cause.
Yeah.
And it's like there is something to be said, like to standing up for yourself for sure. But at the same time, like, can you begin to have compassion for others?
But you don't have to lie. But I think that's
you
the
don't
story
have
of
to-
the man and the seas. You don't have to lie about what the other thing
No.
is in order to defeat it.
Yeah.
You can be honest and even love and respect the other side that you're battling against or that you disagree with, and that will actually help you to overcome it if that's your goal.
Right.
If your goal is to overcome a pornography addiction rather than say porn is evil, understand what it is.
Yeah.
Understand why you're using it. Understand the triggers behind it.
Like get
And
out of the
then
surface
you
level.
will be empowered
Yeah.
to overcome it. As a person, you'll be like, well, it has this, but I have this strength that will match it.
Yeah.
Or it does this thing, and I have this tactic I can use.
Or I have many tricks,
Yeah,
right?
I have many tricks.
Maybe I don't have the strength. Like it's like what we were talking about before with strength and weakness. Like there's one part that he continues to remind himself to eat the tuna. He's like, don't forget, old man, to eat the tuna in the morning so you have strength.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget to eat the... He says it like over and over because he's getting delirious by this point. And then he's like, oh, I don't know if I can eat the tuna. And it's like, no, you fool. Eat the flying fish. You know, he's like, oh, yeah. He eats the flying fish so that he has strength.
Yeah.
So he understands that he won't have strength forever. And I think the trouble is we get into these situations where it's like you feel strong, so then you set all your goals while you feel strong. But you don't set yourself up to win even when you're weak.
Yeah.
You know, like there's this quote, I think this is perfect, Matt, that's probably why you opened it. I don't mean to read all of them. But let's see here. Every day is a new day. It is better to be lucky, but I would rather be exact. Then when luck comes, you are ready.
It's beautiful. Yeah, that was one of my favorites.
Yeah. And it's like you could replace luck with strength. Every day is a new day. It is better to be strong, but I would rather be exact. Then when strength comes, you are ready. Like you can replace that word so easily because the idea of exactness, of I know the principles that I live by, and I'm going to live by those principles whether both my legs are broken or whether I feel great.
Yeah.
You know? And then when he goes on to talk about I'm going to have you open that. But then when he goes on to talk about what you kind of had already mentioned, where he says, I may not be as strong as I think, but I know many tricks and I have resolution. I think those two quotes go together so well because it's this idea that like I'm not going to stop. I'm going to show up and I'm going to give my best every single day, no matter what. And it doesn't matter what my supervisor says to me. It doesn't matter what these other people think of me. I'm going to show up and I'm going to do anyways.
Yeah.
You know, because at this point in the book, he's gone 85 days without catching a fish.
Yeah. And everyone around him considers him, to the point where he was fishing with the boy.
Yeah.
But his parents told him, like, yeah, he's a great fisherman, but like he doesn't have luck.
Yeah.
So you should go and be on this other boat. And he goes on
and
the other
they
boat,
force
and
him.
they have luck on the other boat. Like, or I mean, probably some exactness too.
Yeah.
But they're able to catch fish. And so the old man is now doing this alone, and he talks several times about how he misses the younger boy helping him, and yeah, I don't know. I had a thought and then it was gone. But
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a few other lessons that are really powerful in the book. He talks about the boy, and then he says, "But you haven't got the boy." You know,
mm-hmm.
and there's at the beginning of the book, there's this description of his house. You know, and it says there's a colored image of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and then there's a place that used to hold a black and white photo of his wife, but now it's placed under where he puts his newspaper. Like he puts his newspaper on top of it because it made him too lonely. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of goes back to, this isn't something I was planning on talking about, but it's not good for man to be alone. Like I think that is fundamentally true.
Yeah.
That it's not good for us to be disconnected, and you can be alone and in a crowd of people.
Absolutely. And
disconnection's the thing that, like, it's not good for us to be alone. And there's another part in the book, he's like, it's not good for an old man to be alone. Like, he kind of says that same line to himself. He's like, that's why he wishes he had the boy. You know, there's even a part where a little bird lands on his boat, and he, like, starts talking to it, but then the fish switches, and it, like, pulls him, and it scares the bird away. And he's like, I wish I'd have had the bird for company. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah, and he even talks to the fish the whole time. Yeah. And I think that's something that we can absolutely learn from his journey, is that I think he recognized, probably from his humility, but also his true pride, that he was stronger when he looked to other things or other people. When he had the boy, he was stronger.
Yeah.
And even though he didn't have the boy, he still recognized it. He recognized that the fish had something to teach him, had something to show him. Even to the point where the fish pushed him further than he ever could have pushed himself.
Totally.
He was constantly talking about, well, if this fish does 2 more turns, I don't know if I'll be able to do it. And then the next line is, I will do it forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he's having these new, like, these awakening moments and these things that he's realizing, and that's powerful to recognize and understand that the individuals around us or the situations around us, they can help us and teach us and strengthen us and give us perspectives that we didn't have otherwise.
Yeah.
And the thought I was having is, you and I, we've talked quite a bit about Stoicism as a concept, and that the idea of Stoicism is that you have a correct interpretation of your emotions. And you're able to correctly respond in any sort of setting. That's what I think the old man, like, represents that to me, is that he's an individual who just, he recognizes his weaknesses. He also recognizes his strengths.
Yeah.
He recognizes different things that he can use to help him to reach his goals. And then he has a healthy love and respect for himself, and therefore, because of that healthy respect and love for himself, he's able to have that for everything.
Right.
Everything.
Right.
Not just other people, but for a fish, for a bird, for the ocean, for pain. He has this beautiful relationship with the pain.
Right.
You know, he's like, men bear pain. I'm going to bear pain like a man.
Right. Well, and he even talks about, he's like, if I put the fish in too much pain, it might go mad. Mm-hmm. But man can bear pain. Like, I know how to control my pain. And the book is, I feel like we could probably have an 8-hour conversation.
Absolutely.
And go through the entire book and go through all the quotes. But it is definitely, if it's not in your library of books right now, it needs to be.
Yeah.
It's one that I didn't read until probably 2 years ago, and I've read it 25 times in 2 years. Like, it just, and I keep going back to it because I'm like, there is more here for me to understand. Like, even when we went through it today, it was just like, I keep reading it, and it just keeps opening up more.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I love how, like, there were things that I understood more just as we were talking about it.
Yeah.
And to understand more of some of the themes that really jumped out to me. And I think that the principle I'm going to take away the biggest is that he didn't have to lie.
Yeah.
He didn't have to lie about what the fish was. But in fact, him recognizing the truth of the power of the fish and what he could learn from it was what enabled him to be able to rise to the same level.
Well, and he also, one thing I love about it is he went 85 days without catching a fish. And he continued to go out. He continued to be exact. 85 days. How many of us can't stick with a goal for a week?
Yeah.
Could you imagine going like 2.5 months or like...
Yeah, could you go 85 days working out every single day and on a diet and not see a degree of change and go out on the 86th day and keep doing? Like that's power. That's resolve. And that's what he says, right? I have resolution.
Yeah, I'm not going to stop until like I will hammer my head into this rock until either the rock breaks or I die. You know, and that's where I think strength is born out of. Is first you find out what the principles, like how to be exact, and then live them.
Yeah.
You know, stand up straight with your shoulders back. That's a principle you could live by. Like there's the classic one from Jordan Peterson, clean up your room before you criticize the world. That's a pretty good way to live.
Yeah.
Like have your act together. Bear as much responsibility as you can. Find the ways to be exact. And then do those things. Every single person knows how to diet and exercise.
Yeah.
You can pick whatever you want. It could be rollerblading. It doesn't really matter.
Seriously.
If you diet and you rollerbladed every single day, you would get results.
You would. If
you were willing to show up for 90 days, 85 days in a row, you're going to have results.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that's what I take from it every time, and that's what it like solidifies in me. Is can I show up? Can I understand what's going on and accept reality for what it is and not create enemies where there doesn't need to be? Like I never really, until our conversation right now, I never really understood why my favorite quote from the book was, "Fish, I love you and respect you very much, but I will kill you dead before this day is done." Like, I love that quote so much because it's this healthy respect and love and admiration for something while also being like, but I'm not going to stop.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if we want to talk about this, but it just came to my mind.
Yeah.
Because you had recommended that I watch The Gray.
Right.
And I'm now like thinking of the parallels between The Gray and The Old Man and the Sea, because you know, in The Gray it's a battle between a man and a wolf. Essentially, he's battling against the alpha wolf because he's the alpha male in this pack of individuals who go down in a plane crash, and it never seemed like that he hated the wolves.
Yeah.
But that he had an understanding of what they were, and he knew so much about how they thought, how they worked within their community, like what was going on. Like when they hear these yelps in the background, he's like, yeah, someone challenging the alpha. So he understood them, and because of that understanding, he was able to face them fully. Right. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Well, and I find it interesting that, you know, we can find these kind of archetypes within our lives, and then we can begin to find the ways that, like, find the principles that they live by, you know. And that's why I'm so glad at the end of The Gray, for example, that they don't show the final battle. I don't want to see it. Yeah. Because it's not the point.
Well, and that was, I even had to ask you. Yeah. Like, when we got in the car, like, and we were going to we did some cold water today. I asked you, I'm like, did he even catch the fish? Yeah. I'm like, I missed that part. Did he kill the fish? Because it was almost like that wasn't even, obviously that was his goal. Right. But that's not the purpose of the book. That's not the purpose of the journey that he was on. There's more to the lesson, and there's more to be gained from the truth of the journey than even the destination. Like, to the point where I was like, I don't even remember. Yeah. And the book wouldn't change, and it wouldn't be different. The principles wouldn't be any more powerful if he hadn't have caught the fish, or if he hadn't have killed the fish.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is he kills the fish, and then sharks eat the whole thing. None of the meat is for him. Yeah. You know? And he doesn't get to do all the things that he wanted to do with it. It would have made money for him. It would have done all these things. and he shows up, and he realizes one thing that he finds out is the whole town tried to go out and look for him. They got airplanes, boats. They went out looking for him. He said, like, oh, I live in a good place.
Yeah.
I live in a good place.
Yeah.
And then the boy takes care of him and helps heal his wounds and is hurt that he's hurt. And he realizes all the connections that he has, that he doesn't, it's not that he doesn't realize that they're there, it's just that he's obviously been through pain, and which may have sown a bit of disconnection. We may have sown something like, well, like, I'm alone.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love is, like, he's alone out on the water, but that doesn't mean he's alone, and it's, I think each one of us have certain fish in our own lives that maybe right now they're Elmar, right? Like, we hate them. It's about overcoming.
I hate how overweight I am. I hate my addiction, whatever it chooses to be.
Yeah.
Maybe it's people.
Yeah.
I hate my parents. I hate these people because they're trying to control me. But yeah, finish. Sorry, I completely interrupted.
No, it's totally fine. I think that once we move into Elmar, right, it's something that we love and respect.
Elmar.
And that it's like, it doesn't have to be your enemy in order for you to overcome.
Yeah. And some people definitely have the understanding. I can't even remember the source of this, but I've had this. There's been this example where a commander in a battle will be like, well, if I really need to kill my enemy, I need to understand them. But for the most part, people, they use it, like we said, to diminish the other person, to make the other person appear weak. Their viewpoint is weak. They're infidels. They're terrorists. They're whatever. Like, we can just throw a label on them, and then we don't have to worry about them.
Yeah.
But the humility and the understanding and the learning that comes from being able to say, well, I don't like what's going on here, but what's coming from the other side? Like, what's happening from the other side? What is this thing? What are these people doing? What are their intentions? You can learn from them, and it helps you to be stronger. It helps you to understand how you can show up.
Right.
In order to overcome the things in your life that are holding you back from what you want. And it really does, like, it's crazy to me how every single time we have conversations, whatever the topic is, it always comes down to being honest. It always comes down to being honest.
Yeah.
Be honest about what you're facing. Be honest about who you are. Be honest about what your strengths are. Be honest about what your weaknesses are. Be honest about the effort that you are expending in order to, develop your strengths and to overcome your weaknesses. Be honest about the adversity you're facing and why you're facing it and what's on the other side. And the more that you're able to do that, the more empowered you are to choose the things you want in life.
Yeah, and then you can be exact.
Yep.
And you can't be exact until then.
Yeah.
Really. Because it doesn't matter how exact you are, it doesn't matter how disciplined you are, there is a day that you will be weak.
Yep.
The only way that you can have strength even when you're weak is if you're honest.
If you're exact, and honest.
Yeah. If you've found your ways to be exact and you're 100% honest about those things. Because dishonesty is what kills you.
Yep.
Disconnection. Because dishonesty is sown out of disconnection. It is. It's like if you're dishonest with someone, it's because you care more about what they think than what you think. Right?
Yep.
Or you care more about what you want rather than what would be best for them.
Yeah.
Right? You want to lie so you can swindle somebody, right? And take advantage of them. That's all sown out of disconnection. It's all sown out of ego and wanting to look or feel or be a certain way.
Yep.
When maybe that's not actually the way you are.
Be fake pride.
Right.
Fake humility.
Right. So, really, at the end of the day, it's connect or die.
Connect or die. Seriously, though.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I would highly recommend this book. It was a quick read. Like I said, I just did it this morning. I think for me, doing it 1.75, I think it even took less than 2 hours. I think it was like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I really do want to go back and listen to it in real time. Just so that I can kind of feel more of the drama of certain
When I found that,
areas
like,
of
if you
it.
go on, like, the first time I listened to it, I was on a hike. I was going camping by myself, and I was, like, on a 3-hour hike.
Yeah.
So I listened to it the whole time. That was, I feel like, the best setting. I
For
think
sure.
the only other better way would be for you to be in a boat.
Yeah.
More true, and listen to it.
More true to
you know?
the theme of
Yeah. But so as always, guys, thanks so much for watching
Absolutely.
or listening wherever you're at. And be honest, tell the truth, and connect.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for listening to our podcast, for being a part of the Connect or Die Nation. Make sure you subscribe to this page, hit that bell so you can get all notifications when we have new podcasts. In the description is all our different social media accounts. You can go and follow us there. And remember to be honest and go out there and connect.